Well, welcome to another episode of Harbor Rock Wealth Management's podcast series, Life, Health, and Wealth, where we discuss financially driven topics and how they relate to our financial lifestyles. And we are always unconstrained and unscripted. He's Ruben Smith. I'm Jimmy Luster. And today we have a great guest discussing a much anticipated topic of artificial intelligence. Frank Scavo of Avasant is here to join us today.
Welcome, Frank.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. as they say.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah.
So as promised, I always have a sports stat of the day. I have multiple today. It was a special day, August 25th. So first off, we have Ben Hogan, won the first of 9 major championships in his career.
My goodness.
In 1946 was his first on this day, and it was the PGA Championship in Portland, Oregon. So up from your old neck of the woods for a little bit.
That's timely, considering the finals right now on the PGA Tour, right? It's
Yeah,
a
cool.
championship weekend. So
Yeah, and also Dwight Gooden, for our baseball fans out there, in 1985 became the youngest pitcher to reach 20 wins in a season. And I think he ended up with about 195 wins, not in the Hall of Fame. He was only on the ballot for like a hot second. And then,
really,
yeah.
he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think he's top 3 Met to not make the Hall of Fame. So
That seems like that's one from my childhood. So I would just assume he was a legend, in my little league prime. So
Sure,
I just
Doc.
assumed he was.
well, so Doc Gooden, as he was known as, also Archibald Moonlight Graham, which was the subject, who later became known as Doc Graham. He was in the movie Field of Dreams, and he passed away at 88 years old in 1965. So rest in peace to the real Archibald Graham. And that was a great movie. Kevin Costner,
yeah.
Burt Lancaster played him, which was pretty crazy.
That's
Doc
right.
Graham. Yeah. So Frank's going to give us a little personal and professional background. Again, we're discussing artificial intelligence today, and we're really going to lean on you as an authority figure here. I don't know much about artificial
We're in
intelligence
sorry
at all.
shape then.
No.
No, I think we're good.
I think we're in good. Yeah, we're gonna make it. So
Better
Frank,
you than us. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Sure, Frank. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your personal background?
Sure. Again, I'm Frank Scavo. I'm senior partner at Avasant, global management consulting firm. We have offices around the world, and we help mostly large enterprises make major business and technology decisions. And I'll tell you a little bit about how I got there, but I help head up the research group, and one of our major focuses this year is artificial intelligence. And so we have a number of analysts doing research in this area, and we're publishing and creating thought leadership around this subject.
Sure. So it's my understanding, in doing a little research myself, just trying to get up to speed a little bit, so we can speak a little bit intelligently about this topic. I read it's been around since the 1950s. Is that true? And in what application? Where did it come from?
Well, it's in the laboratories in the 50s, which I've been in enterprise IT for almost 50 years. But this was a little bit before my time. But actually, artificial intelligence is something that has been, like you said, around for decades, and we see it a lot in our daily lives. So if you go to Amazon and you have some history there, Amazon will be recommending products. So these are recommendations.
They're so good at that.
They're very good at that. Netflix, you see what you've watched, they notice what you've watched in the past, and they apply artificial intelligence to make other recommendations to you as well. So this is applications of AI that they're almost under the covers, so you're not so conscious of it. But starting in the early years, like you said, in the 50s and the 60s, it was really just rules-based processing. So a system that is programmed with a number of rules when it faces a scenario, and it comes up with a recommendation or an action that it recommends based upon the rules that have been programmed into it.
Okay.
And then since then, the machine learning aspect of this, where the system actually adjusts its rules based upon what it's seen in the past. So it's a machine learning, just like a human being learns from experience. The computer learns from the scenarios that it's encountered in the past and becomes smarter over time. So that's what artificial intelligence is about, and has been developed for many, many years. You have neural networks, you have predictive analytics, you have things like voice recognition. Even you were telling me before we got on recording here that this system that we're using here actually does leverage AI to know which camera to switch to. Those are all applications.
Now you let the secret out of the bag here. Yeah, this is not. I am not a master editor when it comes to the content here. No, we simply have a program that we subscribe for. I think it's $25 a month, and
It's amazing.
within minutes, literally, these entire episodes are
It makes
chopped
it
up.
possible. In the past, you'd need a technician to do all that post-production, but
And
so
hours
much
and hours of
and
time,
hours of time to do that. So it makes it more cost-effective for someone who doesn't do this for a living to create very professional video podcasts and productions.
Professional enough. It gets by.
Not quitting our day job, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting personally that we're talking about artificial intelligence created by humans to become more human in its learning process. That blows my mind right there. But why, since it's been around so long,
Right.
why is it getting so hot now? Like,
Right.
why is it in the news? Why are
Very-
people thinking about it?
Very good question. Something I've thought about. What's different now that suddenly, if it's been around so long, why is
Sure.
it suddenly getting all this hype?
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
It's because of this new type of AI called generative AI, or large language models, which has been in the labs and being developed since about, I believe, about 2017.
Okay.
But what happened is this group called OpenAI released their large language model with a program called ChatGPT, which everybody now has heard of. And that made it available to individual consumers. So the AI of the past that's still in production, like recommendation engines and so on, you couldn't you couldn't have one for yourself, right? It's only available to enterprises to use that technology. But with ChatGPT, anybody from a housewife to a child to a programmer in Malaysia could sign up for this, and it's still free,
Right.
and could experiment with it. And so suddenly people saw what these large language models were capable of, and we're going to talk about, about that more here. But I think it's because it got it in the hands of individual consumers, and everybody just went nuts with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've kind of noodled around with it. We're not big techies, as you can probably tell, but yeah, we noodled around with it a little bit too, and we're surprised at the speed and the structure of it. I would say that there was, at least my opinion was, that there was still a missing human element to it.
Well, we'll get into that. I
Okay.
think that's one of the things when we get to, some of the nuances.
Sure.
We'll talk about that.
Well, you mentioned ChatGPT,
Right.
and I think that's probably one of the acronyms that everyone has heard by now. I don't know too many people. My brother's in the industry. He's IT. He's been IT for a long time, and he started telling us at a family get together. I don't know, a couple months ago, the topic came up, and he started explaining it, and we were like, mm-hmm. So I had to look it up. Chat generative pre-trained transformer.
Correct.
Please tell me more in English. Yeah.
Well, it's the other term you'll hear is large language model. So these models and OpenAI, which is the engine behind ChatGPT, is not the only one. There is Google has its large language model, and that's the chat equivalent of that is called Bard, B-A-R-D. And you can sign up for that also, it's free.
Okay.
Microsoft Bing has Bing Chat, which is also based on OpenAI. And then there's Anthropic, Claude is another one. And then there's a whole bunch of them. But those are like the four that I use on a regular basis to experiment with that. But what is the technology? Well, basically, these large language models are large because they've gone out and they have been trained on enormous data sets, like basically, you could say, like the whole internet. They've consumed all of this language.
It's a massive universe.
Massive universe. They've consumed all of this language, and they've learned basically how to, and there's several types, but the type that we're talking about now is they're called generative AI because they generate text. So you can talk to it. You can ask it a question, and it'll respond in perfect grammatical English. And it's like, and what's very deceiving about it is you think you're talking to a person, and they, most of these express themselves in the first person. I this and I that. So you
Yeah,
feel
they even have a name.
they have a name. You talk to them like a person. It responds. It apologizes if you tell it it's wrong.
It's
things
showing.
like
It's sympathetic, empathetic. Yeah.
it has an appearance of being sympathetic and empathetic.
Yeah.
It's not a human. It's just
Sure.
basically what it's doing is predicting the next word in a sentence, the next sentence after this sentence, the next paragraph after this paragraph. It's all predictive. So just like when you go to Google and you key in, tell me about something, it fills in suggested words. Or what is the weather forecast? It fills in, like it suggests things. It's predicting what it thinks you're going to want to ask.
Sure.
So it's the same type of technology that's predicting the next word or predicting the next sentence. But because it's been trained on these enormous data sets, it's able to converse and generate text that sounds very, very human, very, very reasonable.
Okay.
So we'll talk about some of that, the applications of that.
I know that a lot of our viewers out there and us personally, we're interested to see how it's really going to apply further in our personal lives, like the day to day. And I'm sure it's sneaky. You know, it's probably integrated more so than we think. But let's talk about business applications first. And there's, we could talk about this on a whole episode.
Right.
But how about in the financial world? Let's start there. I mean, we're in the financial services industry. We've been in here a long time.
Right.
We know that there's a lot of things that scare people about this. Like,
Yes.
Is it too smart? Is it going to, security? How does it affect that? How is it going to help me? Let's start in financial services. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's interesting you asked that because the research we're doing at Avasant now is by industry. So we're looking for industry use cases, and financial services is one of them. And we recently had a couple analysts, digging into what has been established in financial services for generative AI. And you can put these use cases into two categories. One are those that you use to increase revenue. So either you're creating products and services that you're going to sell, maybe as an upsell to a client, there are other things that you can do, or there's productivity improvements where you're going to lower your costs. And the easier cases are the latter.
Right.
Okay, so one of the use cases that we had come up with was what I call serving the financial advisor. Okay, which
I'm
is
listening.
what you're
Yes.
So, and of course, I've worked with you now for some months.
Yeah.
And I look at the enormous amount of material that you prepare to inform me of my financial condition, the investments that I hold, how they performed, and where we're expecting to go.
Right.
And I don't know the answer to this question, and I haven't asked you, but I got to believe you get some automated support for that. Through your platform or through your systems, because you create all these graphics and all this text and all this
it's
analysis.
all software-based programs.
software,
I don't know from an AI standpoint. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is. These are
So-
web-based programs.
So generative AI should make that job easier. Should suggest advice that you would want to give me, or suggest analysis on how these investments are performing, and draft a content for you to share with me. Now, the important thing here is the way we said that was you serve the financial advisor, because you don't want the generative AI to directly do your job.
Yeah,
Replace the financial
You
advisor.
want, yes,
Yeah, no.
you want, and it's not just because you want a job,
of
but
course.
it's because I heard someone the other day say you want it to help you write. You don't want it to think for you, something like that. You still want to be the thinker. You want the human in the loop. We're going to talk more about this a little bit later. But it's to serve you, to make you more effective at serving the client.
It's more of a partnership.
It's more of a partnership.
Well, and it's like a massive time saver
It's a massive time saver.
for all parties, and it's smart technology.
Yeah.
I
Another use case that we came across was, I think we called it explaining the reasons for a loan denial.
Okay.
Okay, so a loan applicant is going to apply for a mortgage, apply for a car loan, or apply for some line of credit or something. And the systems today will go through and they'll rate that loan application based on the information that the consumer submits, and will rank and decide whether to grant or deny the loan or ask for additional information.
Sure.
The generative AI, the way the banks are looking to use it, is to then take that information and draft it into a communication to the client to explain why they're not going to get a loan and what they need to do to improve their financial position.
Still
to be
not
creditworthy.
replacing the underwriter.
Still not replacing the underwriter.
Okay.
The underwriter still underwrites the loan, but this is to draft the communication
I got you.
to explain to the client, right? And then the underwriter can still, of course, tweak
Well,
it.
and how many times have we been on the other end of that where
Yeah.
we won't mention names, but we worked for a large corporation where we were the face of the corporation. We were the messenger,
Right.
in other words. And we weren't always equipped with the right, I guess, guidance for these
No,
clients
because
or
that's now you're
customers.
talking about an emotional response.
Yes.
And that's still important for the human to be able to deliver that. But if it has help, like you were saying, in preparing an objective
Yes.
response
Right.
with some empathy, as we talk about,
Right.
I think that's pretty beneficial.
Right.
But it takes some of the onus off the front-facing individual as well on why that happened. It wasn't me. It wasn't personal. But it also says it's also telling that maybe that client that, well, when I say it wasn't me, I didn't do this, I didn't make this decision, that sounds kind of cold sometimes too. So
Right.
this is more of a here's the information, here's why, let's figure out an answer for you.
That's right.
Instead of dwelling on some negative.
Right.
Well, that was great on the financial services. I'm sure there's a ton coming down the pike on that.
Well, the other one, and this applies across industries, is customer service. So today, as if you call any customer service line, a lot of times you get an automated response.
Sure.
Right? Well, these systems now are getting smarter and smarter to where a lot of this customer service incidents and response can be handled more intelligently with the generative AI. So things that would automatically kick over to a human agent now, a lot of times can be solved. And actually, we found that consumers many times prefer that, right? To get their answer, instead of being on the phone for 20 minutes waiting for an agent,
Sure.
in 20 seconds to get my answer and move on. But still kicking the incident over to a human agent where it really, you really need that live correspondence.
Sure.
So that's,
Okay, I think I have an example of this. So a week or two ago, we ordered DoorDash for dinner, and we got the complete wrong order. It wasn't even the same restaurant.
Oh,
Apparently,
gosh.
they had two orders. So I went into the app and said, order was wrong, and it gave me a list of things that I could check off. And literally within 30 seconds, I was fully refunded. I had the wrong cuisine, but it was fixed, and I didn't need to call somebody. I didn't need to wait on hold. It was
Right.
timely. It was quick.
right,
So it was a good experience. Other than
right.
it wasn't it wasn't my first choice as far
Yeah,
as dinner.
That's right.
What about something that's important to all of us, especially as we age? Healthcare.
Yeah.
So I can think of a few applications off the top of my head that it might assist us in that industry. What are some of your insights on that?
Well, that's an interesting industry because actually artificial intelligence has been used actually for some time in healthcare in things like reading diagnostic images. A radiologist is typically will look at an image and decide whether there's a marker for cancer. So this is not generative AI. This is pattern recognition, object recognition.
Gotcha.
Where the program gets smarter and smarter the more it's seen to recognize the signs of cancer. So this has made the radiologists more efficient, and also possibly identifying images that indicate cancer that the radiologist might have missed.
yes.
But still you need the human in the loop, right? But this is not generative AI. This is, like I say, pattern recognition and so on. With the generative AI, one of the use cases is to take a patient history along with the current symptoms that the patient is exhibiting, and for the AI to come back and say, here are some possible diagnoses. Okay, so again, the physician, now this gets, we'll get into some of the drawbacks and some of the issues, I think, a little bit later in the
Sure.
questions. But this is where the physician's judgment is needed along with the machine. So the machine can say this is a typical marker for whatever hypertension or
Sure.
or so on. But again, the generative AI, with all the information on that patient history, may see something that the attending physician didn't remember or didn't see in the long history in the electronic medical records. So this is a possibility where AI can make the physician smarter and more efficient.
Sure.
Is that program also taking into account the specific patient's medical records?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's populated with them. So this is
Wow.
not going out to the whole internet and scouring. It's looking specifically based
targeted,
upon
yeah.
on the medical records of this patient. Now, the one that I think is really cool, the application of this, is in automating the maintenance of the medical record for the patient encounter. So right now, we've all had this experience. You go in to a doctor today, and he's interviewing you or talking, and in the worst case, he's there keying all this into the medical record.
Right.
Okay. Those that have a little better means, they have a scribe
Mm-hmm.
that comes in with the doctor,
Yep.
and is usually standing at a laptop,
Yep.
and the doctor is narrating, and the scribe is entering this patient information. In addition, doctors today, they hate, many of them, and I know somebody that implementing electronic medical record systems, the doctors hate it. They spend 8 hours or 10 hours a day visiting patients, and then another 4 to 5 hours at night maintaining the medical record. They hate that part of the job. So, and I've seen demos of this recently, systems that will actually, and it's based upon voice, are listening to the conversation between the doctor and the patient, and they're doing the work of the scribe to fill out the medical record.
Unreal. Yeah.
Yes. And I asked the software provider that was doing this, I say, is this to help the scribe or replace the scribe? They say, right now it's to help the scribe,
Yeah.
but we're going to get this to the point where we can replace the scribe. Now, you say, okay, that's about lowering the cost of healthcare and efficiency and so on. But the part I like about this is doctors go into the business to serve patients. They don't go in to maintain medical records.
Right, right.
They hate that part. So if this allows the doctor to spend more quality time with the patient, I mean, how cool is that? How beautiful is that?
Well, and it's I recently had a doctor visit, and I hadn't been, I had my yearly physical with my GP, but I went in. I have sleep apnea, and I've been on a sleep apnea machine for a long time, but I need a new one. Mine's 15 years old. I need a new one, and I can't get one without a prescription. And when I finally made it in to see the pulmonologist, I had never met this person before. He's a new doctor. I had never had a pulmonologist. I got it from a sleep company, years ago. But I finally met this guy, and we sat down, and he had all the time in the world for me. It was a little different experience.
Nice.
I didn't feel like I was rushed. And I'm wondering, is some of that, it's almost like some of that's being adopted already, that style, because a lot of that stuff was already taken care of for me. I was able to fill out a lot of stuff before I came in. And I don't know if that's some artificial intelligence there giving him a little inside look at me already. He's already done the homework on me. And the meeting went really well. It was efficient. I got the right information. And I walked out of there saying, that was like a really good doctor's appointment.
Yes.
I had I broke my arm about 1.5 years ago. I think actually when we first met, right around that time, I had a broken arm. And the orthopedic doctor came in and did everything on it. He didn't have a scribe, but he had his iPhone out and was going through and saying all of his notes right there. And
You're like, are you scrolling Instagram?
he talked like the Micro Machine Man. I mean, he was talking fast, but I'm assuming this is going back into a program where he can go back and chop it up a lot easier versus,
Yeah. But I mean, if this helps, there's doctors leaving the business these days because they just say it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
If this can keep doctors practicing longer,
Yes.
I mean, how much does that improve healthcare in the U.S.?
I look at it like this
Or around
too.
the world.
Exactly, quality of life, right?
Right.
If they're still spending the 8 to 10 hours in front of patients, well, that extra 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours a night, maybe they're doing something that they enjoy. They're with their family. They're
Right.
relaxing. They're
Right.
a better experience.
Yeah, they're
all around.
providing better service.
That's right.
So we've talked a lot about potential applications, a lot of the positives. We like to focus on the positives. It's human nature, but I think we're doing a disservice without touching on some of the risks and challenges involved here. And I'm sure you have some thoughts in your mind about that.
I do.
I'm gonna throw you a bounce pass on this one, and I'm curious to hear what are we facing as far as risks and challenges.
Well, like we started out saying, when this technology first appeared to consumers, I mean, people went nuts with what was possible. My daughter, our daughter, first thing she did with it was she used it. She said, "There's the food I have in my refrigerator. Give me a recipe." And we come up with a recipe.
Oh, wow.
She'd say, "I would like a recipe
like
for dog. I need a recipe for dog food using chicken. What are some good, recipes?" So the thing would respond and give her a recipe. She loved it. So people found. I mean, this is like crowdsourcing. ChatGPT allowed people to discover the art of the possible, what they could use it for.
Yeah.
And when I started to use it, because I tend to be very analytical, as you may have noticed. And so I started testing to see how it could be used. So the first thing I did was, and I didn't explain a little bit of my history at the beginning, but I have a long career in enterprise IT, and I've actually been an IT consultant and a business consultant for up 40 plus years at this point.
Wow.
My partner and I founded a management consulting firm called Strativa in 2000. In 2005, we acquired an IT research firm called Computer Economics. These two firms I sold to Avasant in 2020 and still run the research part of the business. And the consulting part was assumed into Avasant's management consulting business. So, long story to get around to the point was, I said, I'm going to test ChatGPT. And the first question I asked was, tell me about the history of computer economics.
Oh, something you know about.
Something I happen to know a little bit about,
Sure,
right?
yeah,
The history.
yeah.
The firm was founded in 1979. So I was the third, my partner and I were the third owner. Okay, so I know the history, and all this is documented on the web. Okay, so this is not something that's secret. It's out there. It should know. It comes back, and like you say, it's very fast. It's like in 10 seconds, it comes back with like probably 80 or 100 words. In the first two sentences, there are 4 errors. If I can try to remember what they were. They got the year of the founding wrong. They got the location wrong. They got the name of the CEO, the founder, wrong, and the current CEO or president incorrect.
How did that happen?
I don't know. So this is the first problem. This is called hallucinations. That's the term this is the term they use in generative AI.
Okay.
It has a tendency to hallucinate, which I phrase it as it just makes stuff up.
I've heard about that.
It
Okay.
makes stuff up. And if you're not careful, it's in perfect grammatical English. But if
If you're just glazing over it, you might
you're
be like,
glazing,
oh,
this
yeah,
is
that's
great.
right. Yeah.
And that could be out there now as truth. Now, I'll tell you even a funnier part of this. Later in this essay that it writes, it says, computer economics is well recognized in the IT research firm as a leader in blah, blah, blah. In fact, it has been recognized by leading research firms such as Gartner and Forrester and listed the name of the award that it won in several years. Now, I happen to know the history. I know Gartner. I know Forrester. They don't publish these. They don't have this award. So I said, tell me more about this award. So it goes into this description about the award that is just totally bogus. I said, who are some winners in recent years of this award?
Oh,
they
great.
said Gartner does not make this information publicly available. I said, then how do you know computer economics is on the list?
So here you are having this conversation with
Yes.
with this.
Yes. Now let me take this.
That's crazy.
Let me take this out of the personal realm here and tell you about a story. Our CEO, Kevin Parikh, is a lawyer. When I told him this story, he went nuts. There's a legal case in New York. I don't know if you heard about this, where the lawyers, it was a lawsuit with an airline, and the lawyers submitted a brief to the court of 4 cases that backed up their case. And they got this from ChatGPT, the lawyer. The 4 cases, they have a case number, they have a name of the defendant and the plaintiff, and the judge, and the case number. Totally fictitious.
Oh my gosh.
So they submit it to the court. The opposing attorneys take it and they say, we got a problem. We can't find these cases. So they ask the lawyer to please provide more information. So what does he do? He doesn't go back to the court dockets. He goes back to ChatGPT and he says, are these cases real? ChatGPT comes back and says, yes, they're real. I assure you that these are real cases. So he submits that to the court.
Oh my God.
Okay, this lawyer and this law firm got sanctioned
Yep.
and had to sign an agreement that they will never use ChatGPT or any generative AI without fact-checking themselves. But this is the first problem. It's called hallucinations. I call it making up facts, making stuff up.
BS.
Yeah, it's BS.
Sure.
So
it sounds like we're running into a quality issue here
To say the least.
with these lawyers. Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and maybe a little laziness at the
Yes.
same time, but quality, that's dangerous.
well, you have made up facts is one thing, and then even when it's factual, it can be pretty low quality writing. So there was a case recently, again, I don't know if you've heard this one. Microsoft has a news, their news service, and they published like 4 news articles on travel. It's like, popular writing on travel recommendations. And I think the one that was just ridiculous was they were recommending things to do and places to visit in Ottawa, Canada.
Okay.
And they said, one thing for, you foodies out there is to be sure to visit the Ottawa Food Bank
Okay.
and be sure to bring an empty stomach.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay, so
Unless that's just a real trendy restaurant that's a spin on.
so
Yeah.
they pulled that. Then there was another. They pulled all these articles eventually.
Wow.
Then there was one that said, I forget the city, but they said Montreal. They said Montreal is a great place to get a hamburger. And then they described what a hamburger is. It's a piece of ground beef on a bun with typically lettuce, onion, tomato, and condiments. And a great place to try to get that is McDonald's.
Okay.
So it's all factually correct, but it's just lousy.
So nice commercial.
Technically, yes, it is correct.
Nice
Technically
commercial
correct.
for McDonald's.
There's no made up facts there, but it's just very poor writing. And the other one I remember is said that when you're visiting Anchorage, be sure to try the seafood. Seafood comes from the sea, and it's typically fish and shellfish, and it's delicious. And it's basically a Wikipedia kind of entry.
Yeah.
So
right.
so Microsoft pulled them, and they said the wording they used was was not an AI problem, it was a human problem, which means the way I interpret that, these articles were written by AI and the human editor did not review them. So it was the human's fault.
Oh, I
So there is this problem of quality, like you say. The problem is that it really, without an editor, it can generate some really poor content.
Yeah, yeah. It
And
seems to use a lot of big words. I don't know. I recently read one that I'm like, it sounds impressive.
You can tell
But
if you
the
read it
flow
close.
is not.
Yes.
Not there. It doesn't read well always.
There's a science fiction site that takes, I forget the name of it, takes user-submitted stories, science fiction stories, and typically get, 40 or 50 a month. It was like getting hundreds. They're all written by AI. They had to shut off accepting submissions because you're getting flooded with this generative AI-generated content. So the problem here is that it leads to a problem that they call it LLM, large language model drift. The other term I've heard is AI cannibalism, where as this material is starting to flood the internet, these AI models will then consume it and use it to generate future content.
Yep.
Yep.
So it's I say it's poisoning the well.
So you're saying if someone goes to Chat GPT or the Google or Microsoft platform and has an inquiry, that is now public information, or is that part of their database that they can go back to and use?
Very, very good question. When you submit something to ChatGPT, it becomes part of the training.
Part of their database.
Part of the training database. If it's published on the internet, which much of this stuff is, right? There are content reviews of books and so on that's generated by AI. All that now is, of course, public information that gets consumed.
Okay. Now, one more question on that is that posted to the internet by a Chat GPT type model, or is it me going in there and saying that sounds pretty good and I'm going to post it?
Typically
like Wikipedia style.
Typically the latter, except that some of these spammers, they just automate the whole thing. They generate it and the program posts it. Right?
Okay.
So they build a front end to just post all this lousy content. There are many, many examples of this right now. Amazon has a problem with the self-publishing. There's a lot of lousy books that are just being generated by people in developing countries trying to, get some commissions and royalties, and it's just lousy. So Amazon needs to do a better job on keeping the bad stuff off, so that the good stuff can surface.
Wow.
So AI, am I looking at my new coworker, or are they taking my job?
Well, that's a very good way to put that, actually. Microsoft calls its AI enabled systems Copilots.
Okay.
So the best one known is for programmers. It's part of GitHub, which is a platform for software developers, programmers.
Okay.
The AI in that helps them. They will start to code something. It will, just like completing the sentence, it will suggest the rest of the code. Also, another good use of it, and I know developers that are doing this, it uses it for documentation. So you write the code, and the Copilot goes in and annotates the code to explain what you're doing, and the programmer can override that. So it's a coworker.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So you want it to help you. You don't want it to replace you. And I think that's where we're going with this. And that's the part we're all trying to figure out, is to what extent do we need a human in the loop versus what can I delegate to the AI to do for me?
That's a great word, delegation.
Right? And not instead of me, but I can delegate it to help me do some things. So one of the things we're looking at Avasant is a paradigm to how to rank the risk of the AI application versus, and based on that, how much we need a human in the loop. So we talked earlier about the physician using generative AI to do a diagnosis. You want that physician hugely in the loop.
Right.
Yes.
It's just like autopilot on a car, right?
Yeah.
They don't want you going to sleep and letting the AI drive the car home. You're supposed to, but the problem is it's so good at driving that people then get, use the word lazy.
Yeah, complacent.
Yeah, and so it's the same way. These are autopilots. If you're not careful, it could lead to danger.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In a lot of ways.
So how about the concept of, and briefly, opportunity versus disruption? Where do you lean? Is this an opportunity, a real opportunity? So it goes kind of back to the risks and challenges versus positives. Opportunity, or is this a disruptor coming our way?
Well, whenever there's a new technology coming out, I mean, this goes all the way back even before, but let's just take to the internet, right? There were a lot of predictions when the internet was that this is going to be hugely disruptive, and it was, right? Retail especially went through a lot of a disruption. There's a lot of big retailers that went out of business. Amazon has taken over a lot of categories. But ultimately, society and business adapts to the technology and finds a way to turn it into an opportunity. So unemployment in recent years has been at record lows. And we had a disruption, of course, the last few years because of COVID. But if all these jobs are disappearing, then why do we have higher unemployment, right? So it either takes away some jobs or it makes some jobs easier to do, so we become more productive, but it also creates jobs. Okay?
Right.
So you have this concept today, we're talking about prompt engineers. These are people that can use the AI and know how to craft prompts to the AI to get the best outcome. That's a whole job that didn't even exist. All these AI skills today are in huge demand. As companies begin to implement these applications, they're going to need workers that know how to use it. And the schools are already incorporating this into their curriculum. I mean, that's a whole other area we haven't, discussed the impact on education. When this first hit, the teachers went nuts. They said they forbid kids to use it. They don't want them writing essays with it. They didn't want anything to do with it. Now I'm hearing they're starting to lighten up and realize they're going to use it in life.
Right.
We have to teach them how to use it.
It's like the calculator being used
It's
in
like
the
the
classroom.
calculator used in the classroom, right? You still need to
point.
know how to do long division,
Yeah.
but you also need to know how to use a calculator.
You need to understand the concepts, but how do you apply it to real life?
And the teachers now are seeing they can use it to help develop lesson plans, or the one I like is to do quizzes. Here's my lesson. Help me write 3 multiple choice questions based on this lesson,
Right.
right? Here's my students' essays. I've got 30 of them in my class. Help me go through and find their, help me redline, find their grammatical areas, punctuation, style, and so on. Actually, the generative AI is very good at that.
I tend to be more of an optimist, and whether it's business related, education, healthcare, what I'm getting from this is that it's going to make life more efficient. There's going to be a learning curve.
Yes.
It's not necessarily, let's say in business, it's not necessarily, it has the potential to make business more efficient, which means, okay, if one position or area of the company is no longer viable or around because it's been replaced with AI, it's going to be replaced with there's going to be another opportunity that opens up.
That's right.
And as the business grows, you're still going to have, I would argue, you probably have more jobs now that you need to fill.
That's
so
right.
it's just going to look different. It's part of an evolution.
It is, and it's there's a skills gap that needs to be filled. Training programs need to respond to this. We all need to adjust, and we're going to figure it out.
Sure.
We're going to figure it out.
Well, I think that brings us to our final thoughts. And time flies when you're learning something new, especially from quite an authority figure. And I want to say I thank the Lord for people like you who are much smarter than me working on this stuff for the future of our lives. So again, thank you for being here. I see a repeat guest for sure, and we'd love to have you back as things progress.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us in our digital barbershop. Whoever you were and however you're watching, we'll see you next time. Thank you.